So today I'll present the work that we've been doing here in Chile on the evapotranspiration and water productivity on grapevine grown with two different trellises. So one is a vertical shoot positioning trellis, and the other one is a high wire cordon. I'm happy that the people from Concha y Toro presented work on eddy covariance and surface renewal, so I don't have to do, everything again. So it's good. But I wanted to point out what I'm going to talk today. First of all, I'll give you a short list of factors that are somehow regulating the water use and productivity in many different species, like woody crops, like grapes. And then I'm going to talk about the case study, which is, again, ET vineyards grown with VSP and high wire cordon trellises. And finally, we'll give some conclusive remarks. First of all, as you might all know or get to know in this day, a workshop, the evapotranspiration is an energy-dependent process. And so the ET, or evapotranspiration of the plant, is driven by the amount of energy that the plant intercepts, okay? So the canopy intercepts this radiation from direct solar radiation, as you can see in this sketch here, but also there are indirect sources, which are the reflected and scattered radiation. So there's an additional amount of energy that the plant might intercept. And also there are masses of air, warm air, moving around, and also the wind is creating some turbulence around the vines, and so that's a source of energy that replaces the air around the vines, and so the vines have to put themselves again in balance with the rest of the atmosphere around. So there are multiple sources of energy, and all the combined effect of this direct and indirect sources of energy basically regulate the amount of water that evaporates from the soil and the amount of water that transpires from the plant tissues, okay? So we call this evapotranspiration because it's a combined process of soil evaporation and plant transpiration if the water is available in the soil. So that's a kind of a given condition. So we call non-water limiting conditions when water is available in the soil moisture for plant uptake, and so the process can continue. Sometimes people say that this is a loss, but it's not really a loss. It's a gain for the plant because through water, the plant absorbs nutrients, and then water is also needed for photosynthesis, for carbon assimilation. So it's a gain, is not a loss. If we stress the plant, there's some adjustment by the plant and reduction in carbon assimilation and nutrient uptake. So there are multiple factors that regulate this amount of energy received by the vines, in the case of grapevine. And again, this is the main driver. The energy intercepted by the plants is the main driver of ET and production under, again, non-limiting water conditions, all right? So here is a short list, is a non-comprehensive list. You can see that ET and production is regulated by the rootstock and the vine variety, because they all have different vigor or tendency to develop the vegetation, and this, of course, affects the amount of energy. So you have a big plant canopy that intercept a lot of solar radiation and a lot of other source of energy, okay? Then we got, the type of trellis system and canopy management. Again, this can affect the amount of energy. Also, the air turbulence is somehow affected by the height of the canopy, by the width of the canopy. The slope and aspect, so if it's south-facing or north-facing, if it's, high slope or mild slope, this also affects the amount of radiation that is intercepted. And row orientation, so whether we are north-south or east-west, the effect of solar radiation is different, so you got some regulation there. Floor management, whether we have mulching or cover crop might regulate also some additional reflection of the solar radiation through to the canopy, and so that might be additional energy. I give it for granted that all you know that weather condition affect also the solar radiation, the air temperature, the relative humidity, and VPD, which is a vapor pressure deficit, and also the rain as an important factor in regulating ET. Whether we are in the coastal area or the inland area is also the grapes might transpire a different amount of water because you have a cooling effect sometimes from the ocean, and that reduces the amount of somehow temperature and energy available. But also we have a warm breeze in some areas, you know, from near the sea. But also we have fog and dew. Fog and dew is basically water in the air. So that water doesn't come from the soil, but, you know, it has a kind of an evaporative cooling effect, okay? So this is a short list. It's not comprehensive, but there's a lot of things that, you know, regulate evapotranspiration. The case study that I'm going to describe today, we worked since 2016 with Viña San Pedro de Tarapacá here in Chile. And in this specific project, we investigated the evapotranspiration and water productivity, I call it WP, of grapes grown with high wire cordon and vertical shoot positioning system. I'm pretty sure all of you know the difference between the two, but if you don't, here is a couple of sketches here that show you that one is a high type of trellis, and so the plant develops, and, you know, there's a tendency also to develop the cordon towards the descending, while here everything goes somehow upward, and you have a shorter trellis in vertical shoot positioning. So those are two alternative way of growing grapes. I mean, there are many others, but these are probably the major one used in Chile. And here's a couple of pictures taken at the side. As you can see here, you know, a taller trunk, you know, a kind of a spread, a sprawl of canopy. Here's you have a box in the vertical shoot position. It's like a box of a canopy, and also there's some shading there. So one row shades the other, depending on the row orientation, all right? So there's some energy-related aspect there. In Chile, when we started this, about, you know, after the, I would say 36 and 35% were both planted in VSP and high wire cordon, but, you know, there was not really information on how much water it takes for one or the other, and how much the production is with similar amount of water. So we call it water productivity, and so it's the amount of grapes that you produce per unit of water evapotranspired. So the main question from the growers is, at that point when we started, I think we started in 2017 with this project, is what trellis to choose, given that Chile was experiencing somehow recurring droughts. And so under drought and under well water condition, so which one is more convenient, regardless the fact that a high wire cordon is very interesting to growers because of the mechanization. So you can mechanize a lot of operation in the field, including pruning, and so basically there's a labor efficiency on top of the other convenience. So, so basically, the question is which one to choose for the future, given that the future might be characterized by increasing alternation of wet and dry extreme events. And so we try to address that. Well, we try to contribute to address that information. So just a little bit of information about the high wire cordon for those of you who are not involved in production. So the high wire cordon promotes a diffuse light environment for the canopy, and this somehow improves in climate like in Chile, and also in humid climate, the cluster microclimate condition. reduce the cost of canopy management because of the mechanization, possibility to mechanize, often sustain higher yield and production efficiency. There's a concern by a number of growers about the longevity of these trellises. So if you are basically doing a lot of mechanization, a lot of mechanical pruning, somehow there is concern that this trellis will not last as long as the VSP, but still, this is still to be debated because there might be some viruses and spread of disease because of the high mechanization. Anyway, so a lot of growers, even in California, are moving from VSP, so the short trellis, to the high wire cordon for simplifying the operation. So the main driver is labor. The shortage of labor, the shortage of specialized labor, but also the possibility to mechanize and obtain higher fruit yield. All right, so let's see here. So the question remains, which one is more convenient water-wise from the water use point of view and from the water productivity point of view, all right? And this is kind of important in Chile, as in California and many other semi-arid climate, because we are expecting more drought and more severity of drought, all right? So the area where we worked is the Central Valley part and the Pencahue and the Talca province and region of Maule. And again, Viña San Pedro de Tarapacá was our grower collaborator. And this, the grapes was a Cabernet Sauvignon with east-west row orientation. You can see here, we got high trellis versus low trellis in two different blocks. We also did low trellis with east-west and north-south, but today we're gonna only talk about the high versus low. The treatments, so the Quartel 690 and 691 were the training system, again, with high wire and vertical shoot positioning. A little bit of information, I'm not gonna go through this, but you see the rootstock, the spacing, the planting spacing, the vine density, vine canopy, canopy dimension, type of soil, all the characteristics of the vineyards where we work. And I have to make sure you understand 2019-20 had two problems. One was a severe drought, so it was almost 40% less water available than the average. So that was the first problem. The second problem was pandemic. And so it was not a lot of possibility for us to go to the field, do all the, but we were able, thanks to the help of UC Davis Chile, to go on and extend our data collection to 2021, which was a kind of a better year for water, almost near the average in terms of water supply. But somehow we were lucky because 1 year was drought, 1 year was kind of average. So we capture the yield and the conditions of the two different years, okay? Again, what we measure with eddy covariance and surface renewal. We use the residual of energy balance, so it's not a full energy balance, it's a residual. So we calculate ET, which is LE, by the difference between net radiation minus ground heat flux minus sensible heat flux. So all the three parameters are Rn, G, and H are measured. The fourth parameter is determined by difference, okay? So the evapotranspiration, actual evapotranspiration, which is LE, is obtained by difference. So it's called residual of energy balance. And I'll show you. So the net radiation is measured with a net radiometer. The ground heat flux is measured with two different type of sensors. And I'm not gonna spend a lot of time. I wanna show you a little bit more the result. And the sensible heat flux, which is the term H, is measured with two parallel measurements, the sonic anemometer and surface renewal technique, okay? So we had two different parallel measurements, and we calibrate one versus the other. The gold standard is the sonic, but the sonic is something that costs like $4,000 a piece. This little thing is about $150 a piece. So there's quite a cost difference. When you apply this technique, basically, you measure how much energy is used to transpire water. This is the term LE. And then this comes from the energy that is available from the sun that gets partitioned into some part of this energy goes into the soil. We call it ground heat flux. And then the rest goes to heat the canopy around the hair. So these are the terms that we measure and obtain in field research. Some examples of our ET station in multiple vineyards. This, I think, is in California. We measure in slope and aspect, and some other table grapes, and some other vineyard in California. And just to give you an idea of the equipment, it's look like slick and very easy to manage. It's not easy at all. You need to pay a lot of attention. You need to do a lot of maintenance, and we basically go every week almost to the field when we can to make sure all the sensors are clean, are positioned well. So we pay a lot of attention on this. Here is the first measurement we conducted, but we were only able to do the fraction of light interception by VSP. As you can see here in blue, the first graph, you can see the light interception, the photosynthetic active radiation intercepted by the crop on high wire versus VSP. And you can see the high wire in 2020, which was a good year, 2020, 2021, started, like a jump start because there was enough water in the soil to have a jump start. And then later on, there was a little bit too much canopy. So Viña San Pedro operation did shoot tipping in order to balance the canopy with the production. And so, but you can see here that these two type of trellis have, different vigor if they are allowed to grow because of the water availability in the soil. And when we accumulated over the course of the season, the high wire trellis versus the VSP, you can see there's a higher amount of canopy that is somehow intercepting more and more radiation with respect to VSP. Let me see. Okay, here's the first results. Again, 2020 was a severe drought. And so you got here the reference CT of that year. Well, so is the grass evapotranspiration. And here we have the VSP versus a high wire cordon. So the circle symbol is a high wire cordon. And so the evapotranspiration of high wire cordon in 2019-2020 was slightly lower because there was not enough water in the soil. Water supply was limited, so the farming operation could only do, minimal irrigation to keep the plant alive. And that is a common problem in semi-arid, even in California. Every 3 or 4 years, we have the similar situation. But you can see, because of the bigger vigor of high wire trellis, you get a little bit more stress in the high wire cordon, because that's more light interception. 2020 was a good water year. 2021 was a good, nearly normal. And then you can see, again, the dashed line is a reference ET. And then you can see to do two different trellis. The triangle is a VSP that, use less water, while the high wire cordon was able to develop and use more water. And again, when you have water, that's a gain. It's not a loss. When we combine all the results together, just to give you an idea, it becomes very messy. The graph becomes very messy. But you can see the two reference ET, they're pretty much the same on the seasonal trend. But you can see also the difference between high wire cordon in 2020 and 2019 versus VSP in 2020 and 2019, 2020, and 2021. And so you can get a sense of the relative differences. Here is the cumulated ET in the drought here on the left. You can see the high wire cordon, again, cumulatively, use less water, little less water because it got more stress. and water was not available there. Here, water was applied a little bit differently because the farm management had enough water to irrigate one a little bit more than the other. And you can see also the dashed line here are the irrigation amount of water applied over the course of the season. You can see the high wire cordon was, taking up more water. Again, this is the stem water potential, and I put here the threshold of the target stem water potential over the course of the well water here. And you can see that the farm management was able to follow somehow and never go below the stress level because water was available in 2020, 2021. In 2019, 2020, they didn't have enough water, so they went way below stress level. And so you can see the stress of high wire cordon was relatively higher. When we clean from 2019, you can see the target and basically the stem water potential of the two trellises here. And remember why you can see this in the stem water potential, because the canopy of the high wire cordon during 2020, 2021 was much bigger. So it didn't get stressed because he had water to transpire, right? All right, crop coefficient. Here is it. I put the actual crop coefficient of 2020 and 2021 in these two graphs, and a dashed line is the well water crop coefficient that we determined in 2017 and 2018. Those were average year well water here. You can see relatively how the crop coefficient behave over the course of the season. So this is a high wire cordon. You can see 2019 was way below an average, all right? 2020 was somehow below the average, but still reaching the average crop coefficient. I mean, the well water crop coefficient. VSP, here is the result in terms of crop coefficient. And you can see basically, here's the take-home message. When you put all together, you get the relative water use of one and the other in the 2 years. So overall, I think that the results from the field data show that the high wire cordon block used similar amount of water during the drought, and it used relatively higher amount of water during the well water here, okay, 2020, 2021, and basically the water supply restriction in 2019, 2020 reduced ETA more in the high wire cordon with respect to the VSP, and this is because of canopy, different canopy development. Here's the final slide that I have. I wanted to show you the results in terms of total ET over the season. The first red column, total yield for high wire cordon and VSP over the course of the 2 years, and water productivity. And also we calculated the reverse of the water productivity, which we call the water footprint. And so here's what we found. In the drought year, 2019-20, because of the water supply limitation, the high wire cordon block had a higher water productivity, all right, than the VSP. In the 2021, has a slightly lower water productivity, but it was very minimal. So what do you choose if you have a climate that is somehow alternating drought and well water year? So the damage comes when you have water supply restriction, and so you probably might want to invest into things that are high water productivity during the drought. So basically the vines grown with a high wire cordon use less water per unit of grape yield produced during the drought, and a little bit more water per unit of grape. But the problem when you have enough water, you basically is non-existent, because you don't have restriction, you don't have yield impact. So We wanted to continue this study over the course of the following year, because whatever happened this year has consequences in terms of yield over, probably 1 or 2 years following year. But funding limitation did not allow, and I think somehow this study was confirmed by some other study done in Napa by one of our colleagues in cooperative extension. They found a very similar result. So during the drought, the high wire cordon has a higher water productivity. And so now it's a matter of, characterizing your climate and probably getting a sense of how many years of drought you're going to have in 10 years of, in 10 years, how many years are drought. So this will allow you to balance which trellis to use. But given the other benefits in terms of, labor productivity, maybe the high wire cordon for the climate of Central Valley of Chile is the way to go. And that is somehow my end. I wanted to also point out that this study was published recently in a Journal of Irrigation and Drainage Engineering of the American Society of Civil Engineers. And there are a bunch of people that I have to thank for the study. Francisco Rojo, a guy from Chile, is now in New Zealand, is a faculty in New Zealand. Rick Snyder, Octavio Lagos, Juan Curicunio, those were my partners in crime for this study, but also I have to acknowledge student from the University of Católica University of Valparaiso, and also the farm manager at UC Davis Chile that allowed this study to go on and complete beyond the pandemic and beyond all the problems and restrictions that we had. With that, I'm sorry, I might have exceeded a little bit. Well, anyway, thank you very much.